is Alma and welcome to my book journey. I am here today to do a mid-month reading wrap-up. So in February for my reading wrap-up, I filmed a really long video and I didn't really even realize it until after I was like editing it. Excuse me, sorry. Until after I was editing it, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is almost an hour long. And so I was like, I don't know if people are gonna stick around and listen to an hour-long video. But I really wanted to, in the video, I wanted to talk a lot about the books and everything. And so I decided I was gonna try to do something different for March. Because I knew I was gonna be reading quite a few, I knew I was gonna be reading quite a few books because of middle grade March. Sorry, I had to take a sip of my coffee. And so I thought, well, I'll try this and see how that goes. I'll split it up, and at the middle of the month, let's see how many books I can get read by that specific time. And then I'll just, at the end of the month, I'll see what I read at the, after these books. That way they're a little bit shorter videos for you all. And then also I have more time because I felt, even though it was an hour long, after I recorded it and I watched it and everything and I was editing, I was like, oh, I forgot to say this or I forgot to say that, or, I forget, a lot of the things that I think I want to talk about in these books. And I was like, well, if I would have said them the hour, it might have been a 2-hour video, and definitely don't want that. So here we go. We're going to try this out and we'll see how this works. And I might like this better, like splitting it up. And so for March, this first half, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've read 6 books so far this month. I've had a few middle grade books and a mystery, and then two really good books that I've read that I just finished yesterday. I finished one. And so I'm going to start with the first one. And so this was my mystery book, and it was this one is the one that I picked for Chantel Reads All Day. Her challenge was read a book that has multiple points of view. And so this book is And Then They Were None by Agatha Christie. And this is about 10 people. So these are points of view, or 10 people that get invited to a island by a stranger. They don't even know this person, and they show up on this island, and nobody knows each other. And so they're kind of wondering, why am I here, or why am I being invited to this island, and it's kind of mysterious and everything. And then right away, this book is really short, and it jumps. The first couple chapters is getting to know who these 10 people are, like who are they, where they're coming from. But right when they get to the island, it just starts. it just starts. The interesting thing about this book is there's a poem in the book that's called like the 10 Little Indians, and then each line of the poem has to do with the murder mystery, and I thought that was pretty clever. And so, like I said, it was a really fast read, and I loved the ending because it was a really good twist. And then here recently, a couple days ago, my husband found an old movie. I think it was done in the 40s, and it was this book. They did a movie based on this book, but they changed everything. I'm like, well, they had similar, the characters were named the same, except for a couple of them they switched. And then like a lot of details were different. And then the whole ending was different. I was like, oh, I like the book a lot better. But you know how it is with movies. But I really enjoyed this. This was my first Agatha Christie book, and it was really, I was surprised. I thought it was going to be hard read because it's an older book. Language was different because it was, you know, written a long time ago. But as far as like the story and the mystery, I really enjoyed it. So it won't be my last Agatha Christie. So I'm interested to read more from her. And then this one, I know in her other novels, she has like investigators that are in it. Like, I think is it Marples is one. This one did not have that. It was just the 10 characters that were on the island that were in the book. So, great book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend this one. So, that was the first one I read for March. And then I picked up my middle grade books, and this one was a book recommended by Christa from Books and Jams, and this fulfilled the one-word prompt. And this book is called Wishtree by Katherine Applegate, and this one was really sweet. And this one was about a tree named Red, because I believe it's a redwood. And the tree, you know, because it's a children's book, is alive and has, you know, been around for hundreds and hundreds of years because trees live a long time. And it talks about her perspective in the neighborhood where she lives. And the reason it's called Wishtree is because once a year on May 1st, the neighborhood, the surrounding neighborhood, the people bring their wishes, and they write their wishes down. And I don't know if you can kind of see where they kind of tie on their wishes to the tree. And so on that day, the tree is filled with all kinds of, I mean, they use clothes, they use ribbons to tie their wishes on the tree, which is really sweet. And so we have that story of the tree, but there's also kind of like a interesting little side story, because the tree, the house where the tree sits, there's a family that is there, and the little girl, I'm trying to think what her name is, Samar, and her family is just moved there recently. And so you get the kind of feeling that, you know, people are kind of hesitant about them because they're different or that kind of thing, culturally. And so you have that story, and then but I really love the story of the tree. She has friends with all the animals that live, you know, the bird. She has a best friend named Bongo. She's a crow that is like her best friend, and she has friendships with the animals that reside. You know, she has like animals that live in her, like her, what do they call those? Where the openings where she's had over the years. But anyway, so you have all that as well. But this book reminded me, you know, and I'll have to share a story from my childhood, because it talked about how the tree has so many memories, you know, of people sitting under her, children playing in her branch and things like that, and just, you know, all the things that this tree has seen and has witnessed. And, you know, if the tree could talk, she could tell all these stories. But when I was growing up in California, in my front yard, and my brother and my sisters, they watch my videos, so they might remember this tree that we had. Remember this tree we had? And it was so big, and it was sat outside in our front yard, or it was in our front yard. And I remember taking my toys and getting underneath at the trunk of the tree and just playing there. And my brothers and sister, or my two brothers, we would always play in that front yard, in that tree, and climb it and just play. And I loved that tree. But this sad story, when I was a little bit older, I'm trying to think of when it happened. I don't know if I was in middle school or high school, I'm not sure, but we cut down the tree. And I was so sad that they, you know, because I had memories of that tree. And when I was reading this, I was like, you know, kind of came back to me about the tree and what they cut down the tree and they made a driveway because we didn't have one for our house. So, but this book made me remember my tree and fun memories I had there. So this one was a really good middle grade book. I really enjoyed that one. So the next book I read was another middle grade, and this one was called Other Words from Home by Jasmine Warga. And this one was for the prompt, read an immigrant story or refugee story. And this one was really good too. This one was a book in verse, and I think this might have been my first book in verse that I've read. Really enjoyed the way it was written. And this is about a young girl named Jude, and she lived in Syria. But at the time when she was living there, some political turmoil is happening, and her mother is pregnant, and the family makes a decision for her and her mother to go to the United States and live with an uncle, her mother's brother, who was living in the United States and had been living in the United States for many years. And it was mainly for protection because, like I said, there was a lot of turmoil, not necessarily in her town, but it was coming closer, and the dad just wanted to make sure that they were okay before anything really bad happened. And the dad couldn't come because he owned a store and he needed to stay and make sure the store stayed open and running. And then she also had an older brother who was very much into, and she wasn't quite sure. She just knew he was into like the politics of what was going on, and he was with the younger people that wanted change in their country, and even though the father, you know, didn't like that, he was still left the home, and for a long time they didn't even know where he was at and if he was safe. But the story follows her and her mom to the United States, living with her uncle, who was a physician, and he lived in a really nice house, and that kind of, you know, she definitely had culture shock and change, you know, not used to the affluence that her uncle was living in as a physician, successful physician, and a big house, and she had a cousin that was a year or two older than her, and they kind of had they didn't get along very well right away. There was a little bit of animosity between her cousin, you know, because her cousin had a totally different lifestyle, and, you know, she grew up in the United States, whereas Jude grew up in Syria. So they had different, even though they were family, and, you know, they didn't really connect right away. And that was really interesting because, like I said, even though they were family and they were both Syrian, they were, you know, her cousin didn't speak her language, and she did, and Jude did speak English. She had already learned English, but she struggled with speaking it at first, and was self-conscious about that. And there was a piece a part in here that another thing that reminded me of my childhood was this, and I wrote it down. It says, she says, I glance at my I glance at my mama and her newly swollen stomach, because she's pregnant, and I know this part is my responsibility. And she's in a store, I believe, and they were asking her the mother questions. So I know this is part of my responsibility. I am the one who knows English, and I am the one who needs to talk. And so she was like a little interpreter for her mom. And from personal experience, I remember when I was younger, kind of like similar, you know, her age, to Jude's age, my mom didn't speak a lot of English, and I would be her interpreter for you know, when we'd go to the store or whatever, and she needed something, or she needed to tell somebody something, it was my responsibility to know English and to talk. And I did a lot of that when I was young. My brothers and sisters did that too. So that kind of another book that brings back memories. So this was a really good story. I don't want to talk too much about it for spoilers, but I really liked the idea of that they came to the United States for protection, you know, with her family, and that her uncle, even though you could tell he had been in the United States for many, many years, because he wasn't even speaking Syrian. You know, he was just speaking English, and he didn't teach his daughter their language either. And he was very, not that he forgot his culture and how he grew up, he just, you know, this was his life, this was his home now. And she kind of resented that at first, like, why, you know, but then at the end, I believe at the end, you know, they come to have a greater bond as a family, you know, both the family from the United States and then her family. So, but I highly recommend this. It's a really good book. And it's fast, like I said, it's fast read because of the book, it's in verse. The next book I read was Lone Wolf by Raeca Klassen. And this one I chose for a debut novel. So this is her first book. And this one was so sweet. It was really good. And this is about a young boy, and his name is I gotta think of what his name is. I want to say it's Hugo. That's a thing. I had a few different books that I read just now that have the name Hugo. I just finished one that had Hugo, but this one was a young boy. He's a boy in the foster care system, and it's really short, but it is his feelings about being in this family, and it's really touching because he has that sense of that he's not wanted, and he's been in several foster homes, you know, been bounced around, and he has that feeling that nobody wants him. And so, and she does such a good job in her, even though it's really short, you really get his feelings, you know, in these short little chapters. She really does a great way in her writing style of getting his story across. So that's what this one is about. It's really good. I highly recommend this one for children to read. It's really, like I said, it's really short, but it's got a really good, meaningful story. Okay, the next book, I'm gonna get in my cheat sheet to see, or not my cheat sheet, because I'm forgetting my picture of, okay, we are to this one. So this one I just finished it a couple days ago. It's called Ariadre and the Legend of the Fire Rose by Christy A. And I just loved this book. I really did. I loved this book. And I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy it, because it's not, I do read some fantasy, but I have, like, this is, when I looked at the cover, I thought, well, it's kind of maybe like medieval kind of setting, and I haven't really enjoyed those kind of books. But I really wanted to read it, and I really enjoyed it. And she does such a good job of getting you involved in the story, like, right away. I think I read this in a couple days because I didn't want to put it down. I just wanted to know what was happening. So the story is about a young girl. I believe she's maybe 12, 11 or 12 in the beginning, and she's traveling with her parents, and they're traveling from their town, and they're going, they have a horse and they're walking with the horse, and they're going through like these woods, this forest, and something happens, and her parents are attacked, and they save her, and they have her they tell her to go ahead, because they were really close to where they were originally headed. And unfortunately she gets away, and this, because of a creature is attacking them. This book has like magical creatures involved in it. But she doesn't, she gets to where she's going, and she finds this manor, and they let her in, and she ends up staying with these people, and after they send somebody to go see if they can find her parents, but she never sees her parents again. They don't ever find them. So this manor is basically, it's like a school for girls. Sorry about that. Something was in front of my dog. He was doing something. Anyway, where was that? Okay. So she comes to this manor, which is basically a school for girls. And in this school, they are being taught, their studies and things like that, but they're also being taught weaponry. And all these girls are orphans. And so she's another orphan that they allow to come and live there. And so she lives in this place, and she is really good at her, fighting, and she's really good at with her bow and arrow. And she, at this time, she wants to try out for what they call night hunters, and those are like the elite of these girls that are really good at weaponry. And they're in charge of protecting the manor, because in this world there is evil things in this forest that's close to them, and that's where her parents had been killed. And so the night hunters protect the manor, and she wants to be one of those girls. And so the story is her going through like the training and the trials to become one of these night hunters. And at the same time, we have a story that's really kind of interwoven with the background of where she came from, and wanting to know, what really happened to her parents. And it's kind of a mystery of the manor and the people that run it as well. And during the book, I was like, oh my goodness, little things started happening, and I'm like, oh, I was trying to think, is this going to turn out a certain way? So there's a lot of little twists and turns, and finding out the background of things that are happening. And Christy does a really good job creating. This is her first book, and she does an amazing job at, and I'm really not describing it very well either, but she does an amazing job at creating this new world, and the places, and the creatures that are, the wild creatures, and there's like these little treelings, little people. I was like, I need pictures. It's like, I wish this was like a book with, how kids' books have picture books. It's like, I would love to see the images of these creatures, and the little treelings, and the gowns, and the dresses and things. So at the end of this book, it's like a big cliffhanger. And I know Christy's working on book 2, and I can't wait to read that one. So if you haven't had a chance, definitely, and I'll leave a link below of this book. You want to pick that up and read it. I highly recommend this one, especially if you're kind of new to kind of this genre of fantasy. She does an amazing job, and it's, like I said, it's an easy read, and you are going through it really quick. it's a fast read, but it's a good read though. It's really good and really interesting. Keeps your attention up. And then the last book that I've written so far this month, I just finished it last night, is called The Wishing Game by Meg Shaffer, I believe. And I read that on my iPad on Libby that I checked out. And it was not what I thought it was going to be. But of course I didn't read anything about it because I didn't want to mess it up or give, you know, if it was like a mystery or something, I didn't want to spoil anything. But the story revolved, and it gave me a lot of like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka vibes. The story of Charlie getting the golden ticket. And so what the story is about is an author who's a famous children's author, and he's written many books and over the years, but for the past 6 years or so he hasn't written anything and hasn't been in the public eye, and then all of a sudden he announces that he's going to have this contest, and he was going to invite I think he invited 4 people to come, and he lives on an island, to come to his island to participate in this contest. And the winner of this contest was going to receive his new book that he had written and hadn't shown anybody. And so the main character of the book is a young woman named Lucy, and she is around 26 years old, and she is a single woman. She's a kindergarten teacher's aide, and at this point in her life, she is wanting to, she really wants to adopt a young boy that she has come to know that's also in the foster care system. And his parents were killed due to a drug overdose, and so he's, like I said, going through the foster system. But she got to know him because through the school, and she, at one point in time, she took him in for a week until he was able to find a foster home for him, placement. And during that week, she bonded with him and just knew that she needed to adopt him, that she wanted to be his mom. But she needed to go through the process of having a good home for him and being able to support him. And as a single person, she was saving money and things like that. And so when she got the opportunity, she was one of the persons picked to go to the island. The one thing on her mind was, if I win this contest, I'll be able to, sell this book, and then I'll have money to be able to adopt him. And so that was the background story, excuse me, of that. And of course, you have the characters, which was kind of fun. The author that was putting on the contest, he was big into riddles, and there was riddles to be solved in this contest. And there's also the illustrator of this author's books also lives on the island and is a good friend of the author, and there's a background story with him and that relationship, and I really and I like the way the book ended with what happened in the contest and everything. It's a really good book. I really enjoyed it. This one I picked this one up because I kept seeing it on, people were saying it was really good, great book. It was good. I think I probably would have given like maybe 3.5 stars. There was some language, not a ton of language, which was fine. And I did like the story, the main thing I really liked about it was the relationships between the girl and her Lucy and the little boy, but also her family, like her background and the things that happened to her that was really touching. That really got to me. So that is it. And I'm only at, I don't know I don't think I'm as long as I was in my last wrap-up video. So those are the books I've read so far for March. I've got a ton more on my TBR that I'm looking forward to reading, and today is the 12th, so we still got a couple weeks left to get those read and done. So comment below if you excuse me, comment below if you've read any of these books, if you've read any of these middle grades for middle grade March this month, and let me know. Or do you enjoy, let me know if you enjoy mid-month wrap-ups rather than the end of the month wrap-ups with like everything. I'd be curious to know, because I see people do them both ways. They'll do everything like I've been doing. I'm just doing them all, and then, or you know, chopping it up. And I've also seen people do weekly wrap-ups, but I don't know if I could do that, because I read so many books at the same time that I wouldn't have any done by the end of the week. So I really can't do that. Hats off to those people that are able to do that. But I'm curious if you would rather see a mid-month or if you don't mind those long videos. Although I could probably cut it down. I just get to talking and I don't realize how much time has gone by. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me today to hear about how many books I've read so far, and I'll see you at the end of the month as far as book reviews and wrap-ups. Thank you for joining me, and like and subscribe, and have a blessed day. Bye-bye.